Hello, my ghouls! I have finally been able to return to you, and as you may be able to tell, I've actually been able to get a new microphone. Now, this new microphone is a lot better than any of the other ones I have had before, and hopefully you guys will find it much easier to listen to my videos from now on. I was also wanting to upgrade to Pro version, which is part of why it took so long to get here, but sadly I have been unable to do that. As you can see here, I have a Furnival deck profile. I'm actually not doing a profile over this. I actually just kind of had this set as my default. But we are going to be looking at my Melodious deck profile. Now, this deck profile is not supposed to use traps. Most of the decks I've made recently don't really have traps because I've had a lot of decks I've always made that are extremely trap heavy, and honestly, trap heavy decks aren't particularly fun to play against or play with. It's part of why I stopped playing Evil Sworn. Now, I do have a pretty fun time playing Gladiator Beast, because playing Gladiator Beast isn't all that different from playing chess. You have to lure your opponent into doing what you're wanting them to do by putting pressure on them, and you have to always think multiple steps ahead. And here I have my Melodious deck profile. If you don't know what Melodious are, they are actually the archetype used by Yuzu from the new Yu-Gi-Oh! Arc 5 and their first few monsters. Arya the Melodious Diva, Sonata the Melodious Diva, and Prodigy Mozart the Melodious Prima will actually be coming out in Duelist Alliance. And after Duelist Alliance, in Next Challengers, we will be getting the others, which are Serenade the Melodious Diva, Laure Francois the Melodious Prima, and Canon the Melodious Diva, and Elegy the Melodious Diva. And any of these I butcher. I'm not doing it on purpose. I just genuinely can't pronounce what their actual names. And also in Next Challengers, we will be getting a spell for them. It's called Solo First Movement, and it specials a Melodious monster that's level 4 lower from your deck, as long as you control no monsters. It also doesn't require your opponent to control a monster. And along with them, we do have 3 Valhalla, Hall of the Fallen, and 3 Hecatrice to get your Valhallas out, because a majority of the Melodious archetype need to be special summoned for their effects to be able to work, although you can also normal summon them, as I'll be getting into later. The ones that need to be special summoned for their effects to activate include Arya, Kanan, sorry, I honestly don't know how to pronounce her name, Sonata, and Elegy over here can be special summoned or normal summoned. Her continuous effect goes off during either of them, but it's better to have her special summoned because she protects special summoned monsters from being destroyed by card effects, which will include herself if she was special summoned. Over here we have Laure Francois. Actually, no, let me get into Arya first. Arya, when special summoned, makes it so that way your Melodious monsters cannot be destroyed by battle or targeted by card effects. If you have a special summoned Arya and a special summoned Elegy on the field together, your monsters cannot be destroyed by battle or by card effects and cannot be targeted by card effects. So there's not very much that will be able to get rid of you. You do have an extremely bad matchup against decks such as Medolce, which do not target and don't destroy. Now, along with them, we have Kanon, the Melodious Diva. She's not particularly needful, but she is a special summonable monster. She is level 4, and she does provide access to your rank 4 monsters. Now, what she can do is she can target a Melodious monster you control and change its battle position. So if you have a monster you want to attack with and then change to defense, that's all she's particularly good for, except for making rank 4 XYZs. Besides her, we have Laure Francois, the Melodious Prima, as I have already talked about Elegy. Her effect is that once per turn, you get to add a light fairy type monster from your graveyard to your hand. Now note that half of their effects actually a majority of their effects do... As far as special summoning and adding go, their effects do not require them to be Melodious monsters. However, Elegies does say that only Melodious monsters cannot be destroyed by card effects. However, her effect to give a 300-point attack boost to all fairy-type monsters you control does not include only Melodious monsters. As well, Lorraine Francois can add any light fairy. It does not have to be a Melodious monster, which is really helpful because she can actually add back Honest over here. And besides her, you have Prodigy Mozart, the Melodious Prima, who special summons a light fairy type monster from your hand. Now also, in reference to their two effects, they do have a restriction. The turn you use these effects, you cannot special summon monsters. Well, for Prima, Prodigy Mozart, you cannot special summon monsters except for light monsters. For Lorraine Francois, the Melodious Prima, you cannot activate the effects of monsters except for light monsters. Now over here we have Serenade, the Melodious Diva. What Serenade does is she's treated as 2 tributes for the tribute summon of a fairy type monster. During the turn she is special summoned, you get to normal summon a Melodious monster in addition to your normal summon or set. As well, I do run 3 Shining Angels to be able to special summon cards like Serenade, Canon, and Sonata, and also if I really want it in my hand, I can special summon Honest if I don't think they have anything to get rid of it. Hecatrice I kind of skipped over because most people know what Hecatrice does. What Hecatrice does is when you discard it, you get to add a Valhalla Hall of the Fallen from your graveyard to your hand. Or not from your graveyard to your hand, from your deck to your hand, I'm sorry. And next up we have Sonata, the Melodious Diva. She's actually probably the most useful of the Melodious monsters besides Aria and Elegy. What she does is she can special summon herself as long as you control a Melodious monster, and while you control her, all of your fairy type monsters gain 500 attack and defense as long as she was special summoned. Next up, I run 3 Forbidden Lance and 3 Mystical Space Typhoon just because I want to protect my monsters from those trap cards. Besides Melodious, I've also been creating a couple other decks as I have another Interme deck and I have Superheavy. I haven't really shown Superheavy off, so I am going to show it off now. Now, the Superheavy works a lot different from a lot of other decks, and while it is a very defensive deck, and a very, I guess you could say, stall-oriented deck, you don't actually need to stall. Now, one of the main things you need in this deck is you need Superheavy Samurai Big Benkei, because it allows your Superheavy Samurai monsters to attack while in defense position using their defense 4 damage calculation. So if you have Big Benkei in defense, you can attack your opponent with his 3,500 points defense while he's in defense position. He also turns himself to defense when special summoned or normal summoned. However, he is level 8, so I do suggest running at least a couple of trade-in, even though you don't play other level 8 monsters, because he is a very dead card in your hand, as there's currently no way to special summon him from the hand. I do run 3 Giant Rats. I run the Giant Rats because they can special summon any of the Superheavy Samurai monsters in the entire deck. Next up, we have Superheavy Samurai Kabuto. He's not very useful, which is why there's only 2 of him, because your opponent can just normal summon their monsters, attack you, and then start special summoning. But what he does is, if your opponent special summons a monster or monsters, you get to change as many Superheavy Samurai monsters you control as you want, or not as you want, as possible, to defense position. and if you do, they all gain 500 defense for this turn. So he is useful in that way. However, your opponent needs to special summon a monster, and if he's on the field and your opponent doesn't special summon a monster, he's quite useless. Next up, we have Superheavy Samurai Soul Big Bang. Now, Soul Big Bang, Soul Break Armor, Soul Fire Armor, and Soul Great Wall actually act as armor for the Superheavy Samurai. First up, we have Soul Big Bang. It gives 1,000 points to a Superheavy Samurai monster it's equipped to, and you can equip it from your hand or your side of the field to the monster, and it gains 1,000 defense. Also, during either player's battle phase, when your opponent activates a card or effect while you control a face-up defense position Superheavy Samurai monster, you can banish this card from your graveyard. Negate the activation, and if you do, destroy it. Then destroy all monsters on the field, and if you do, inflict 1,000 points of damage to both players. Now, this may seem like a rather self-destructive strategy, but it does allow you to stop your opponent from using cards such as Dimensional Prison from to get rid of Big Benkei. And it's actually better to have him in the graveyard as I run three of Call the Haunted, rather than to have him be at the mercy of being banished. Next up is probably not necessarily one of the most useful, but it is a very useful card. It has finished games for me. You can banish all Superheavy Samurai Soul Break Armor from your graveyard, then target one Superheavy Samurai monster whose defense is lower than its original defense. Inflict damage to your opponent equal to the difference between that monster's original defense and current defense. Now, he is hard to get off. It is actually hard to lower your monster's defense, but Soul Great Wall does it. It gives 1,200 bonus defense to a monster you control, and you can send it to the graveyard to negate an attack on the monster it's equipped to, and its defense will become 0, and you can deal damage that way. Soul Fire Armor, it allows your monsters to become level 5, but that's not really what you're going to want to use it for. During either player's turn, you get to discard it and target a defense position Superheavy monster. It loses 800 defense, but cannot be destroyed by battle or by card effects that turn. We also have Superheavy Samurai Sword 999QQQ. And what it does is it changes to defense position when normal or special summoned, and any monster that battles a Superheavy Samurai monster gets its attack and defense put to 0 immediately, no matter where it is. Even if you have equips, it will go to 0. Any more equips will actually raise its attack, but it goes from 0 from the point it's at. So if you say your monster had 1,000 bonus attack from an equip card and it hits one of my Superheavy Samurais, it will go down to 0. The equip bonus will not apply because that card was equipped while it attacked my QQQ or other Superheavy Samurai. Next up is Tenbin. He can special summon a level 4 lower Superheavy Samurai, so he's extremely good for XYZ. He can also be special summoned if your opponent controls 2 or more monsters and you control no monsters. Oni over here cannot be destroyed by battle, so he's a pretty good card to have. Forbidden Lance, Mystical Space Typhoon, Trap Sun to stop those nasty traps. And D2 Shield over here, most people don't know what it does. What it does is it actually doubles the original defense of a monster you control, so it's extremely powerful in this deck. And I have actually had some duels, and in one of those duels I actually had someone what did he say? The guy said YOLO. He attacked me, I flipped D2 shield and killed him. And we are talking afterwards, and I tell him, well, you shouldn't have attacked, and he goes, And he goes, of course I should.